I talk to myself. Is that normal or a sign I'm lonely? Welcome back to Elderly Care, the place where we talk about real challenges, real feelings, and real solutions, especially for our senior years. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever caught yourself talking out loud when no one else is around? Maybe it's just mumbling as you look for your glasses. Or maybe you're in the kitchen saying things like, "Don't forget the soup's still on." Or perhaps, late at night, you find yourself whispering thoughts out loud, replaying memories or conversations from long ago. Now here's the real question. Is talking to yourself a harmless habit, or is it a silent cry for connection? Today, we're going to unpack this. Is it normal? Is it healthy? Or could it be a subtle sign that loneliness has crept into our lives, even without us realizing it? We'll explore the science, share real-life stories, and most importantly, we'll talk about what we can actually do about it. So stick around, because this might be one of the most personal and eye-opening videos we've done. It's more common than you think. Let's start with something simple, something honest. Talking to yourself isn't weird. Not even a little. If you've ever caught yourself mumbling while folding the laundry, or whispering "don't forget the keys" as you walk out the door, you're not alone. Actually, you're in pretty good company. Many of us, especially as we get older, find ourselves talking out loud more often. And it's not a sign that something's wrong. It's not a symptom of losing it, or going senile. Gosh, that word really needs to disappear from our vocabulary. Instead, it's a quiet tool we've picked up along the way. Something that helps us feel grounded, focused, sometimes even comforted. A team of psychologists from Bangor University found that what they call inner speech, that little voice inside our heads, is a key part of how we process the world. It's how we plan, make choices, sort through emotions, and keep ourselves steady in the day-to-day. Let's think about it this way. When you say out loud, "Okay, milk, eggs, and bread," while making a grocery list, or "I need to call the doctor after lunch," or even when you sigh to yourself, "Ugh, I miss those Sunday dinners," you're not doing anything odd. You're being human. Self-talk helps us organize our minds. It gives structure to the day. And sometimes, it gives us a little bit of company, even if it's just our own voice echoing in the room. And let's be real. Sometimes the house is just too quiet, isn't it? Self-talk versus loneliness. But here's where things get a bit more delicate, more human. Not all self-talk is created equal. There's a difference between talking to yourself to stay sharp and centered, and talking to yourself because you're aching for a voice, any voice in the silence. Let's break it down. If you're reminding yourself of errands or giving yourself a little pep talk, that's functional. It's like mental post-it notes. If you're working through feelings, maybe whispering memories, or having an imaginary chat with someone you miss, that can actually be healing. Like journaling out loud. But if the talking becomes constant, if it starts to replace your need for real human connection, that's something we want to gently pay attention to. Because that could be loneliness trying to wear a disguise. See, being alone and feeling alone are two very different things. You can be sitting in a room full of people and still feel invisible. Or, you can live by yourself but feel totally at peace and connected. It's when the quiet becomes painful, when we start talking to ourselves because we're desperate to feel seen, heard, held, that self-talk might be a symptom of something deeper going on. And that's okay to admit. Really, it is. Because recognizing it is the first, brave step toward doing something about it. The silent epidemic. You know, it used to be that loneliness was just something we brushed off like, "Ah, I'm just having a quiet week, or it's just part of getting older. But it turns out, it's not something to take lightly anymore. In fact, the US Surgeon General recently called loneliness a public health crisis. Yes, a crisis. Right up there with things like heart disease or diabetes. Why? Because science is showing us what many folks have already felt deep down for years. Loneliness doesn't just weigh on your heart, it wears down your health too. Research now links chronic loneliness to higher risk of heart disease, weaker immune systems, which, let's face it, is already a concern as we age, a noticeable spike in depression and anxiety, even a 29% higher risk of early death. That's not a small number. And here's something Dr. Vivek Murthy, the US Surgeon General, said that really gave me pause. He said, "Loneliness is more dangerous than smoking 15 cigarettes a day." 15 cigarettes a day. Can you believe that? And yet, loneliness doesn't come with a warning label. No scratchy throat. No coughing fits. Just silence. Just slow, creeping disconnection. And older adults? We're right in the middle of this storm. Because when retirement rolls in, when a spouse passes, when the house gets quiet and the phone doesn't ring as much, that's when loneliness can quietly settle in without even knocking. Loneliness can be subtle. But here's where it gets tricky. Loneliness isn't always loud. It's not always crying into a pillow or sitting alone on a park bench. Sometimes, it wears a smile. Sometimes, it blends right into the routine. You might be surrounded by people, family coming by every week, neighbors waving from their porches, but still feel like nobody really sees you. That's because loneliness isn't just about being alone. It's the gap between the connection we want and the connection we actually have. And that gap can be sneaky. Here are some little signs that might be easier to miss. Talking more to the dog than to your kids. Letting calls go to voicemail, not because you're busy but because you just don't feel up to chatting. Replaying old conversations in your head, or even out loud. Talking to yourself more, not just to organize your day, but because the silence is too loud. Now, look, I am not saying any of these are bad on their own. Sometimes we need solitude. Sometimes our dog really is the best listener. But when these things start stacking up, when they stop feeling like choices and start feeling like habits we didn't mean to create, they can be quiet little red flags. Loneliness doesn't always knock on the door yelling, "Hey, something's wrong." Sometimes, it slips in quietly, settling into the spaces between conversations, between visits, between who we used to be and who we're still becoming. The good news is, once we start noticing it, we can start doing something about it. And that's what we'll keep talking about in the next part. Sometimes, numbers and studies only tell part of the story. What really brings these issues to life are the voices behind them. Real people. Real lives. Real emotions. So let's slow down for a moment and hear from a few folks who've lived through this in their own quiet, courageous ways. Margaret, 78, widow in Wisconsin. Margaret's story starts in a house that used to be full. For 53 years, she and her husband built a rhythm: shared meals, Sunday drives, nightly Jeopardy, and slow mornings with coffee. Then, 2 winters ago, he passed away. And the silence moved in. Not loud, not dramatic, just ever-present. At first, I didn't even notice, Margaret told me one day on a phone call. I'd be making breakfast and find myself saying, "Looks like snow again," out loud. Or I'd set his mug out by habit and still talk about the coffee like he was sitting right there. She smiled when she said it, not embarrassed. Just honest. I say good morning to him every day. I tell him about my walks, what I saw on the bird feeder. Sometimes I don't even realize I'm doing it. This wasn't about losing grip on reality. It was Margaret's way of holding on to connection, of continuing the ritual of a life that mattered. But something shifted one afternoon when she caught herself saying, "Well, I haven't talked to anyone but you all week." That moment hit her. I realized I'd stopped reaching out. My daughters called, but I'd let it go to voicemail. I'd see friends at church but didn't linger. I was in a bubble. Margaret made a decision that day, not a big one, but a brave one. She joined a local grief support group. At first, she mostly listened. Just being in the room was enough. But over time, she started opening up. Now, she still chats with her husband each morning. It brings her peace. But she also has coffee dates with new friends, and they talk about real, messy, beautiful life. "It doesn't replace what I lost," she said, "but it reminds me I'm still here. And that matters." George, 82, retired mechanic in Arkansas. George lives in a quiet corner of Arkansas where the local diner closes by 2 p.m. and everybody still knows your name if you've been there long enough. He used to run a small mechanic shop off the highway, fixing engines and rotating tires while the radio played golden oldies in the background. Now retired, George spends most of his days in his garage, tinkering with old parts just to keep the rust out of my hands, as he puts it. I'll be in there, working on a carburetor, and suddenly I'm doing a whole radio show, he chuckles. "Well folks, today we're rebuilding a 1965 Mustang starter motor, like I'm talking to an audience." He laughed as he told the story, but there was a pause after. "Thing is, I used to have people dropping by all the time. Regulars. Friends. Guys I've known since high school. But they moved. Or passed. Or just faded out." That radio show monologue wasn't just for fun, it was his way of filling a space that used to have laughter, teasing, shared stories. So George asked around and found a youth center in town that ran a program for high school kids interested in mechanics. He signed up to volunteer 2 afternoons a week. "I didn't know if I had the energy," he said, "but those kids, they're curious. They listen. They ask questions. They roll their eyes at my jokes but they laugh anyway." And now, instead of talking to himself in the garage, George is sharing decades of wisdom with the next generation and getting a little life back in return. Lucia, 76, former teacher in California. Lucia always had a voice people listened to. She taught elementary school for 32 years, and her classroom was full of books, laughter, and structure. But when the pandemic hit, and isolation became a daily reality, she found herself in a quiet that felt more jarring than peaceful. "At first, I tried journaling," she said. "But it felt like homework. So I started recording voice memos. Just little notes to myself. Today I felt sad. I missed the kids. Or even grocery lists out loud." The voice memos started to take on a rhythm. Like little podcast episodes only for her. They became her way of organizing the day, acknowledging emotions, keeping herself company. But after a few months, she noticed something else. "I was avoiding calls with my daughter," Lucia said quietly. "She'd call to check in, and I'd feel drained before I even answered. I'd think, what do I even say? And that wasn't like me." That realization stung. She missed connection but also felt too tired for it. That's a tough space to sit in. So Lucia tried something simple. She asked her daughter if they could do a short, No pressure call every Sunday. Just 15 minutes. No expectations, no deep talks unless they felt like it. Just to hear each other's voices. It saved me, she said. And it helped me want to talk to people again. I still record voice memos, by the way. But now, they are not my only outlet. What these stories have in common? If there's one thread running through these stories, it's this. Self-talk isn't a problem. It's a sign. A reflection. Sometimes it's a comfort, sometimes it's a coping mechanism. For Margaret, it was a way to grieve and stay close to a love that shaped her life. For George, it was a way to remember who he was before the silence settled in. And for Lucia, it was a way to keep from unraveling when everything familiar disappeared. But in each case, self-talk gently whispered a truth they eventually couldn't ignore. You're missing real connection. And it's okay to want more. Not one of them had to give up their solitude. They just added something back in. A grief group. A volunteer gig. A weekly call. Small things, but powerful ones. And that's where hope lies, not in fixing everything, but in choosing one small connection at a time. So let's be real for a minute. If you've found yourself talking to the walls, your dog, the birds outside, or even to someone you've lost, you're not alone. You're not broken. You're human. Self-talk, when it comes from a place of habit, need, or even loneliness, doesn't mean something's wrong with you. Sometimes it's how we cope. Sometimes it's how we process. Sometimes it's just how we fill the space when no one else is there. And here's the truth, self-talk isn't the enemy. But what we do with it, that's what matters. Self-talk isn't the enemy, but it needs balance. Think of self-talk like soup on a cold day. It's warm, it's comforting, it gets you through. But you wouldn't want soup every meal, every day, forever. You'd start to miss variety, flavor, spice, conversation. Talking to yourself can be grounding, sure. But if that's become your main form of communication, it might be a quiet sign that you're missing out on something deeper, real connection. And don't worry, I am not suggesting big, overwhelming changes. Just a few gentle steps to start rebuilding that bridge between solitude and connection. Nothing rushed. Nothing forced. Just real, slow, kind steps. Let's walk through them together. 1. Schedule social touchpoints. This one sounds simple, but it can be powerful. Set up one regular touchpoint. A weekly call with a friend. A coffee date with your niece. A Tuesday morning walk with a neighbor. Even a monthly card game at a senior center. It doesn't have to be a big deal, it just has to be consistent. The key here is to treat it like a standing appointment. Like you would a doctor's visit or a grocery run. Don't wait until you're in the mood or feel like reaching out. Just pencil it in and show up. Because sometimes, the connection happens after you get there. Here's a tip. If talking on the phone feels draining, try a shared activity instead. A walk, a puzzle, folding laundry together while chatting on speakerphone. Not every conversation needs to be deep or emotional, sometimes just being next to someone is enough. 2. Try community volunteering. I know you've probably heard this one before. Go volunteer, people say, as if that fixes everything. But let's be honest. Volunteering isn't about saving the world. It's about getting out of your own head for a while. It's about showing up somewhere where people notice when you walk in the door. It's not about being a hero, it's about being part of a circle. Even if that circle is just the woman at the animal shelter who remembers your name, or the kids at the after-school program who think you're cool because you know how to tie fishing knots. And here's the magic, giving your time often leads to receiving something back. A smile. A thank you. A sense of being needed again. Start small. An hour a week. A local library. A food pantry. A hospital welcome desk. You don't have to change your whole schedule, just look for something that feels doable and, more importantly, human. 3. Reflect and reach out. This one takes a little courage. Just pause for a moment and ask yourself, when was the last time I had a real conversation? Not a transaction. Not a quick "hi, how are you?" at the store. But a genuine, unhurried exchange with someone who really saw you. If it's been a while, that's okay. It's never too late to change that. Try reaching out to one person you've lost touch with. Someone you used to laugh with, or cry with, or even someone you haven't spoken to in years, but who's been on your mind. Start small. As simple, "Hey, I was thinking about you. Hope you're well." No need for a long explanation. You don't have to confess your loneliness or justify your silence. Just make the first move. Sometimes, that's all it takes to reopen a door. And if they don't respond, that's not failure. That's just redirection. Try someone else. Keep planting seeds. One will grow. 4. Use self-talk as a bridge, not a wall. Here's the gentle warning: self-talk can become a wall if we let it. A protective shell. A way to stay safe without risking connection. But connection, real human connection, is worth the risk. So let your self-talk be a bridge instead. Use it to remind yourself what you care about. Use it to rehearse reaching out. Use it to practice kindness, so that when you do speak with someone else, you're already coming from a place of warmth. Say things like, "I miss laughing with someone. I wonder how Sarah's doing. I should give her a ring. I'm nervous to join that class, but maybe someone else there feels the same." That internal dialogue can be your prep talk, not your only talk. A few bonus ideas, just in case you need a nudge. Start a connection journal. Write down the last time you felt connected, and what helped it happen. Keep track of even small wins, like chatting with your pharmacist or waving at a neighbor. Join a group with low commitment: book clubs, walking groups, gardening circles. Online or in person. You can even sit quietly for the first few meetings if you need to warm up. Use technology to your advantage: FaceTime, Zoom, voice messages. If calls feel overwhelming, send a quick voice memo to a friend. It's personal, but pressure-free. Practice saying yes. If someone invites you to something, say yes, even if you're not 100% sure you'll enjoy it. Give it a chance. You can always leave early if you need to. And remember, this is not about being fixed. You're not a project. You're a person. This isn't about curing your loneliness or turning your life into a constant social parade. It's about balance. It's about letting connection, genuine, two-way connection, have a seat at the table alongside your inner voice. Because both matter. Your conversations with yourself, they've helped you get through things no one else saw. That's strength. That's resilience. But now, maybe it's time to let someone else into the conversation, too. Even if just for a moment. Even if it's just to say, "Hey, I'm here. You too." Let's just take a deep breath together for a second. If you've made it this far, maybe something in this conversation felt a little familiar. Maybe it reminded you of a quiet moment from this morning. Or last night. or years ago. Maybe it reminded you of the way you talk to yourself when no one else is around. And if that's the case, I just want to say, I see you. Talking to yourself, it's one of those deeply human things we all do, but we rarely talk about it. It can be a whisper into the stillness, a laugh at your own joke, or a gentle reminder to take your meds. It can be tender. It can be funny. It can be a lifeline. And honestly, it's kind of beautiful. Because it shows you're still in dialogue with life. You're still listening to your thoughts, responding to your emotions, keeping yourself company when no one else is there. That's not something to feel ashamed of. That's resilience. But sometimes, just sometimes, our self-talk starts to do more than comfort. It starts to take the place of connection. It becomes the only voice in the room. And if that's where you find yourself, I want to gently offer you this thought. Maybe it's time to let someone else hear you, too. It's not just about loneliness, it's about being known. See, this isn't just about loneliness in the way people usually talk about it. It's not about how many people are around you. You can be surrounded by others and still feel invisible. You can have a family, neighbors, even a partner, and still go days without feeling really heard. That kind of quiet, it runs deep. And that's when the conversations we have with ourselves can start to fill in the gaps. Not because we're broken, but because our hearts are smart. They find ways to cope, to survive, to soften the edges of that silence. But here's the tender truth. Our voices, your voice, deserve to be heard by more than just the walls. Talking to yourself is a starting point, not the final destination. When you talk to yourself, what do you say? Do you replay memories? Do you remind yourself of errands? Do you ask questions and answer them? Do you speak to someone who's gone, or someone you wished was there? Whatever it is, it's okay. But I want you to know something. Your voice was meant to travel, to reach, to be met. It's not supposed to stay trapped inside, echoing around your mind like an old song stuck on repeat. It's meant to stretch out across a phone call, a park bench, a kitchen table, or even just a simple, shared smile. Your self-talk? That's the spark, the ignition. But real healing, real connection, that comes when someone else hears you and answers back. Reconnection doesn't need to be big or loud. I know what you might be thinking. I've been out of touch too long. I don't want to bother anyone. People are busy. I wouldn't even know what to say. And you know what? Those are all normal thoughts. We've all had them. I've had them. But here's the secret: reconnecting doesn't need to be a grand event. It can be as small as a text, a smile at the mailbox, a thinking of you card you drop in the mail, a voice message to a cousin you haven't spoken to in years. You don't need the perfect words. You just need a word. Start there. Let it be enough. You're not the only one talking to themselves. Want to hear something kind of amazing? All over the country right now there are people just like you. Sitting in kitchens. Walking through grocery stores. Folding laundry. Talking softly to no one. Or maybe to someone they miss. Or maybe just to fill the silence. And some of those people, they are hoping someone will say hello. Hoping someone will ask how they are doing and really mean it. Maybe that someone could be you. Or maybe you're the one who needs it. Either way, the answer is the same. Reach out. Because the conversation in your head is important, but it's not meant to be your only one. This isn't about fixing anything. I want to say something clearly, just so we're on the same page. This isn't about fixing you. You're not a problem. You're not too much or not enough. You're not weak for feeling lonely. You're not silly for talking to yourself. You're just human. And this chapter of your life, it matters. It's not a footnote. It's not an afterthought. It's not the credits rolling at the end of the movie. You still have stories to tell, laughter to share, quiet to fill with voices other than your own. You still have the power to connect, even if you're 76, or 82, or 94. It's never too late to let your voice be heard. A gentle invitation. So, here's what I'll leave you with. The next time you catch yourself talking to yourself, smiling, muttering, reflecting, pause for a moment. Listen to what your heart's really saying. And then ask yourself, who else might want to hear this? You never know, maybe someone out there is waiting for your voice, too. From the heart, thank you truly for spending this time with me. For letting me into your space, into your thoughts, and into this tender little topic that so many of us carry quietly. If anything we've talked about today made you nod, or tear up, or just feel a little less alone, I'd love it if you'd share this with someone. Leave a comment. Reach out. Tell your story. Not just for you, but because your voice might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Until next time, friend. Take care of your heart. Take care of your voice. Take care of each other.